Hey, everybody, good evening, and truly thank you all so much for attending this truly once in a UCLA event of the Autism Goes to College live taping. Like, give it up. It's a Thursday night. Thanks for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan Neale. I'm 21 years old. I'm a junior at UCLA studying communications and disability studies, and I'm a proud autistic ADHD student. When I first got to UCLA, I genuinely had a really difficult time. UCLA wasn't always super supportive of neurodivergent student needs. The supports that were in place were oftentimes inaccessible, and information about them wasn't always widely available. And most importantly for me, I didn't feel like there was a strong sense of neurodivergent community and solidarity among the students, at least not one I felt particularly comfortable and that was easy to engage in. So at that time and struggle, I connected with members of administration and essentially advocated for myself and others on how UCLA could be better. And that type of advocacy effort sparked what would later become known as the Bruin Neurodiversity Collective, UCLA neurodiversity organization that, to my knowledge, is the first and only one that is exclusively neurodivergent student-led and exclusively neurodivergent student members. What's been really cool about BNC for me is that over the course of the almost 2 years we've been around, the type of advocacy and supports and community that I really craved when I first got to UCLA, myself and other BNC members were able to create. So since we got started, we have an over 170 member Discord server of exclusively neurodivergent students who are able to share stories of experiences in classes, ask each other for help on accommodations and supports, and just generally talk about neurodiversity and autism and their experiences in an open and supportive environment. We've also done a lot of advocacy within administration to make information on accommodations more accessible and to engage campus partners on making sure there are programs and supports specifically tailor-made for neurodivergent students. Along the way, I got in contact with the Autism Goes to College team, and a year ago, I actually had an interview with Katharine where I spoke about the beginning stages of starting BNC and my own experience coming to my own as a neurodivergent student advocate. So what a treat it is a year later, where so much has changed both with the podcast and BNC, to come back to highlight some other students with incredible stories and to share little updates of what I and BNC have been up to. Thank you. For a brief preview of what we have in store for you, this event is primarily composed of 2 student interviews, both of whom are autistic members of BNC. We have Jenny and Danny. They all have incredible and unique stories about being autistic and just being themselves in this large, beautiful, difficult, amazing institution of UCLA and navigating the college process in a way that I and Katharine have gone through ourselves. So we're going to start off with one interview, around 25 minutes. We'll have a brief intermission. We'll have a segment where I sit down with Katharine and give a couple updates of where I've been since the last time we had our interview. We'll close out with our second interviewee and then have a brief Q&A section before everyone's excused to mingle, interact, network, or otherwise get on with the rest of your day. I think it's really special that not only do we have BNC members in attendance today, but also several participants in the original Autism Goes to College documentary, which is super special, and I can't wait to speak with each and every one of those folks. Well, without further ado, I pass it off to Katharine for the main portion of the program. Please enjoy, and again, thank you all for coming.
So as Ryan said, I am Katharine O'Brien. I am so excited to be here during April. I'm just going to call it Autism Month because we don't have a consensus on whether we're accepting or aware or some other thing. And I don't know, getting sketchy out there. The less said, the better. But quickly, a little bit about me. I'm currently a graduate student at the UC Riverside School of Education. I'm in my mid-30s, so before coming to do my PhD, I was a classroom teacher teaching science and specializing in working with younger autistic students. Now that I'm in graduate school, I teach a course during the summer to teacher ed candidates about autism in the classroom. I also have several lines of inquiry working with Jan, who introduced herself at the beginning, including supports for autistic students and their teachers in grades K through 2, increasing access to diagnosis, and a study that will comprise my dissertation that I'm working on with Amy Hoffman, who's in the audience tonight, about increasing access to diagnosis for college students and centering the experience of autistic college students themselves in understanding our diagnosis needs. Before I came to UCR, one of my students, another Autism Goes to College podcast guest, Preston, asked me to make sure that the assessment tools we use don't feel so othering, because he had just had a 3-year reeval and it made him feel terrible. And I'm so glad to be here doing just that tonight. So my first guest this evening is Jennifer Mayaki, who's a departmental scholar in linguistics here at UCLA. So she has a bachelor's and she is soon to graduate with her master's degree, in linguistics. So congratulations, you're about to be a double Bruin, double graduate. But your college career did not begin here at UCLA. I understand that it's been a long journey to success. So like many of the students in the UCs, you transferred from community college. And like many of the students here tonight, your journey was affected by the COVID pandemic. So Jennifer is incredibly involved on campus, including creating a Discord server with over 1,000 students during the pandemic. Very impressive. She's an academic peer advisor on the Bruin Mental Health Advisory Committee, an executive board member of Hands On, which is the UCLA ASL club, and a coordinator for both UCLA Disabled Student Union and Bruin Neurodiversity Collective. And you are also the president for 2 years of the Bruin Linguistics Society, and which is UCLA's linguistic student organization, which is promoting the field of linguistics. That is so cool. I'm going to hand you the mic and I'm going to turn it on before I do that. Welcome.
Oh, it's an honor to be here.
All right. I'm so glad to have you. So as I said in your intro, the road to UCLA wasn't direct and you transferred from community college. I also heard that you took a gap year. So how did you end up here? Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, so actually, in high school, I almost didn't graduate. So in high school, I was struggling a lot with my mental health. And at that point in time, I didn't realize a lot of the things I was experiencing could be related to being like neurodivergent. And so in high school, I actually was hospitalized twice during my senior year. I, in addition to being autistic, I also have OCD, and I ended up being hospitalized in my senior year, and then again, and then I went to a partial hospitalization program, and I was in a lot of treatment. I missed a lot of school, and I used to be a straight A student, and I was taking the honors classes. I was in an international baccalaureate program, and then suddenly I was basically not going to graduate.
I mean, if you were hospitalized, it sounds like you were struggling to stay alive and healthy. So that's a lot to take on, especially for somebody who had so many accomplishments. So what happened next? It sounds like you must have been able to find your way through high school.
Yeah, so after I was able to graduate by just passing English. So I barely passed and I was able to graduate. But I will say that like my self-esteem was really, really down, especially in high school when I had like kind of tied my identity so much to my grades. And so after that, I was actually feeling really, really down. And after my hospital experience, which wasn't a good one, I decided to take a gap year. More of like, not really like decided to take a gap year. I just didn't have any motivation to really go forward with school. So I took time off and kind of rebuilt myself. And then kind of focused on like doing like daily tasks, like just trying to kind of restart life. So I do things like, I don't know, like baking or hobbies. And yeah.
Just feeling like you're somebody who can make something again, that self-efficacy. So how did you get back on track? Did you always know you wanted to be a UCLA student? Was that always the goal?
Oh, so actually, funny story. I did not know. Well, I had only heard about UCLA. I knew it was a good school and it was something I had wanted to apply for when I was back in high school. But because of being hospitalized, I actually didn't end up pursuing it. And during my gap year, I took time and then applied for community college. And then I decided to transfer and I applied to most of the UCs.
Well, congratulations. So how was starting out at community college? Did it work well?
Actually, I really loved community college. I really did. I liked the small classes. I liked the teachers in which they would like work one-on-one and like really, I feel like they really focused a lot on teaching. And so I really liked that environment. And plus my community college also had different success centers and, they had like one focus on like just language and that's actually where I learned ASL originally. Yeah, they had a language success center and all the tutors there were deaf. And my ASL teachers were also all deaf. And I really, really like enjoyed like the class. And someone who had always like kind of like an like auditory disability, like I didn't really fully identify as being part of the community at that time, but that's how I kind of got into like ASL.
And it seems like that's been very helpful for you. So you mentioned the success centers at community college being a good thing. What was it like looking for support when you got to UCLA?
I will say that like uh well, at my community at college, we had a disability program that I was part of. And then when I transferred to UCLA, I was during the pandemic, so it's a little bit different. But things were very hard to navigate, especially online. But even when I transferred to in person, I still found it difficult to navigate. It was just like there's so many things out there and so many resources I didn't really know. And I felt like my orientation was a little bit rushed because it was online, it was during the pandemic, it was a lot of recordings. And so I wasn't part of CE, which is the disability program at UCLA when I first started. I didn't register until about like basically 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So basically about half of my time at UCLA, I didn't have accommodations. And then I finally registered and then I had accommodations, but then I was a little bit like, I don't know, I was not used to it. I was like not sure if I wanted to use my accommodations but yeah.
Yeah, sidebar about CE. Last year I was at UCLA doing a fellowship for graduate students, and I found the registration process so confusing and intimidating that I simply never did it and just made do with informal accommodations for the entire year. So you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
But how was the transfer for you? Academically, did it go okay?
I'd say, so transferring the pandemic, I know that a lot of people struggled in the pandemic. I will say that as someone who is really anxious socially, it actually was nice.
Oh yeah, no, I can see how that would be.
I liked my Zoom classes actually. I liked the fact that I couldn't see like the other 100 students. Uh, and that I could communicate through the Zoom chat instead of having to like raise my hand and speak in class. So I really like just like chatting in the Zoom chat. And like if I felt like really nervous, I could just like private message the professor to ask my question. So I didn't have to like even put it in like the full like class chat. So I actually had like a relatively smooth process given the circumstances of the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about your living arrangements? Did you move to campus during the pandemic and how did that go?
Oh yeah, that was so it was confusing. So during the pandemic, we didn't know if when we were gonna move back in person or we were gonna stay online for longer because it was the middle of the pandemic. We didn't know how long this was gonna last. And so things were uncertain. I did plan to move. So I actually like got an apartment by campus. And then But because we stayed online, I kind of just like would move back and forth between like being at home and being like by the apartment, because there's not really a need to be at the apartment.
No.
But I also kind of wanted to live independently. So I was there at the apartment and I kind of got to know a little about Westwood, but in the pandemic when it was very empty.
So I'm hearing that academically, Zoom worked really well for you, but you were navigating some anxiety. At that time, did you identify as autistic yet? Was that something you were thinking about?
No, I actually had not identified as being autistic at that time. I knew I always felt like a little bit different. I mean, in when I was in elementary school, kids would bully me, and they'd be like, "Oh, like you're mute, you're deaf because you don't respond," or because I was like not really speaking. And then in middle school, the teasing still happened. They'd call me like weird or strange,
Oh,
and kind of like socially, I would know, like, kind of realize like, oh, they didn't really want to hang out, and kind of happened throughout high school a little bit. And so I kind of always realized that I was like different, but I thought it was because like maybe I'm just like not cool. Like maybe I'm not like a cool person. That's why like they don't want to hang out with me or something. I don't know.
yeah.
And it was really more towards maybe like my senior year of college, in which I was like actually my boyfriend mentioned that I thought he was autistic.
Oh, okay.
And he had pointed out some traits of mine in which he thought I was also autistic. And at first I was like, me? I was like, huh, like I never really thought about it that much. And I mean, I've seen like the media and how the media usually portrays autistic people, and I was like, oh, like I'm not sure. And I was going through mental health treatment still through college. And I was having actually a lot of hard time with depression and anxiety. And I was trying multiple different kinds of medications, a lot of different therapy, and nothing was helping me. I didn't feel like I could relate to my therapist. I feel like my therapist didn't understand me. And I was basically, having like one treatment after another, after another, after another, and nothing was working. And my psychiatrist and my therapist were like confused, like, why isn't this working? Sometimes they would like, I've had a therapist say like, oh, it was like I wasn't trying hard enough, and I had people tell me like I wasn't trying hard enough, and and then that kind of whether I was autistic kind of came back, and I was like, huh, like maybe this is the missing piece. Maybe this is like what I like. Maybe this is this thing that is like I'm just like neurodivergent. Maybe that's why I'm not able to connect with my therapist. Maybe that's why I'm like not responding to treatment. And at first I was diagnosed with OCD, and that actually came first. Second was autism, and then most recently was ADHD.
I see. Okay. And what changed for you when you got those 3 pieces of information about yourself?
Yeah. So when it was very hard to get the autism diagnosis or evaluation first. I spent maybe 2 years trying to get an autism evaluation. Like I was on a wait list for 10 months at the CAN clinic, the UCLA CAN clinic, waiting for them to tell me that they actually don't take my insurance. Oh, because Kaiser's your primary, you have to work it out with Kaiser. And then so they were like, okay, so we're gonna have to cancel your appointments. So they canceled my appointments 3 days before. And it was a 2-day evaluation. I already like took off work, and I had arranged to go to the appointment and stuff. And they're like, nope, canceled. And so then I had to search again for like another year, trying to figure out how to get tested for autism. And it was very expensive, and eventually found a cheaper option, but it took a very long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a multi-year process while you were a college student. How was your college career going while all that was unfolding and you were dealing with a lot of what sounds like frustrating setbacks medically?
It was really rough. So my master's program is actually a 1-year program.
I see.
And so it's like a special, like accelerated program. It's just like kind of like a +1 program. You get the bachelor's and master's like simultaneously in a way. And so I was expected to graduate in a year, but all this mental health things were all happening in that year. And actually in the first week of class, the fall quarter of my master's year, my grandma ended up in the hospital.
Oh, no.
And so I was with her in the hospital, and then she passed.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And after that, my OCD, part because of the stress, my OCD symptoms intensified. They were like really bad. I was housebound for like a long time. I had to withdraw. I've withdrawn like twice. And I, at the same time, so I was going through a lot of treatments. So I went through another PHP. I was in a partial hospitalization program again for 5 months. And then, partial hospitalization plus IOP was 5 months.
I see. So that was quite a long time that you were off of school.
Mhm.
But did you find that helpful, or did you still not have the right supports?
Honestly, despite the fact that I did 5 different outpatient programs, was doing individual therapy weekly, and had done 14 different medications at that time. I also did TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. I think it was 76 rounds. So sorry, 2 rounds, 76 treatments in total.
Okay. So it might be easier to list what you didn't try.
Yes.
So what did you find that was finally helpful? Because you seem to be doing very well today.
Honestly, it was partly getting diagnosed and understanding myself better. So I got the OCD diagnosis, then the autism, and then later the ADHD. And understanding that I had OCD, I was able to do OCD individual therapy, and they do exposure response therapy instead of ERP.
Yeah.
And so that actually benefited a little bit. They also changed up my medications a little bit. And so instead of trying more antidepressants, I tried something a little bit different. When I got diagnosed with autism, it made me kind of realize, okay, maybe this is why I'm not connecting with my therapist. Maybe this is why my therapists don't understand me. Maybe they don't understand that I can mask. And so when I'm like really depressed and I say it with a smile, I don't necessarily mean that I'm not lying to you. I'm just I just kind of learned to pick up these behaviors where I just very commonly and almost always mask.
Yeah. And it was causing misunderstandings with your therapists who were trying to use your affects as a clue to how you were doing, and it wasn't working.
Yeah, exactly. And then the final thing that actually did work was getting diagnosed with ADHD.
Oh.
So I actually got diagnosed a month ago. So it's actually very recent.
Oh, wow. Okay. How's it going?
Actually, it's going really well.
Great.
So I actually got ADHD meds a month ago. And something about ADHD is that my ADHD I had responded a little bit to the OCD medication, but not as much. And my OCD therapist has suggested that I might have ADHD because part of my intrusive thoughts, because OCD has intrusive thoughts, and you do get anxious, then you do compulsions. And so my intrusive thoughts were they were just happening, constant all the time. So I had really and he was like, that's kind of they were happening so quickly. It was my mind was had a bunch of jump ropes. I was instead of double dutch, I was playing jump ropes with 10 different jump ropes. And that's how I kind of felt I was he kind of suggested I might have ADHD. And I was okay, time to look for an evaluation. And that was also difficult. But eventually I did get evaluated. They did say I had ADHD, and with that, I was able to get medication for my ADHD. And actually, that almost made all the intrusive thoughts go away.
Oh,
and that was a big change. I've never been happier, honestly, than the last 2 months. After trying 15 different medications before that, it was such a big change and something I wish I had gotten earlier, because I had spent at that point 10 years in mental health treatment with nothing that had helped, nothing, and almost nothing in the slightest, no therapy, no outpatient program, no inpatient program, no psychiatry, nothing had helped. And so it was really just getting I got the correct meds, I got different kinds of therapy. And also in my therapy, now that I understood I was neurodivergent, I could understand why certain things didn't work for me, why maybe I would communicate a little bit differently, and I could explain myself a little bit better. I had the language that I could use to kind of explain.
That's wonderful. And I have to salute your persistence. The things you described here are not uncommon, but the fact that you are on track to complete your master's despite them is just a testament to who you are as a person. So you've had tremendous success here academically in particular, and in terms of taking on leadership roles on campus as well. Now that you're almost done, what advice do you have for students who might be earlier in the process?
I would say community. Finding community, it has been like, in addition to the medication, community has been a huge help, because even when during times when it was really rough, like even when the meds weren't working, even when the therapy wasn't working, community really helped in terms of getting support, like mutual support from people that actually understand you. And that's also one of the reasons why, I started identifying as being autistic, because I can relate to other autistic people, and I could relate to other people that had OCD and ADHD, and I could talk to them and be like, oh my God, you struggle with this too? We have the exact same like story, or the same similar story. And that was so like, it feels so warm and so empowering to be like, oh my God, like we have the same exact thing. And it was like, it's so wonderful. Like I love being part of Bruin Neurodiversity Collective, BNC. I've loved being part of the Disabled Student Union. I just like honestly love it so much, because I just like love that kind of community. And it's something that I didn't have at all. Like all these years, I didn't have anything. Like I didn't really meet anyone who was openly autistic. Never met someone else who had OCD or anyone I just didn't have people to talk to. And I really, it was this community that like helped bridge the gaps where maybe medication and therapy wasn't helping. And I'm really glad that like therapy medication is helping now, but the community was really such like a huge support throughout all this time and still now. And so I mean, even for like neurotypical people, community can be such a big help in terms of like finding your community here at UCLA or any school or any college.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to take back the mic now, and we'll pass it to the architect of some of the community that has been so helpful for you, Ryan, to hear a little update about how he's doing. So, as Ryan promised you guys earlier, you're going to hear from him with an update about everything that's gone down since he was on the podcast last year. Ryan, thank you for being instrumental in pulling this event together, for hosting, and for joining me here for the update. So, let's start with the academics. How's it going? Working towards your major?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. I think since we've spoken, I've started most of my upper division classes.
Fabulous.
And what's weird is I've done better in my upper divs than my lower divs, which is kind of the opposite of how things are supposed to go.
Weird for typically developing students, not weird for autistic students. Almost everybody I talk to says this.
Okay.
Because our passion makes us more effective as students. When we are bored and we do not care, we do not perform particularly well.
Absolutely. And I also think I just learned a lot more about like how my executive functioning works. Like I'm always going to have executive functioning challenges. In my freshman year, I couldn't sit down and pay attention to doing readings. This was actually before I got an ADHD diagnosis, which like Jenny really changed my life and experiences. But I also didn't have a lot of crucial executive functioning skills. And it took 3 years and some tutoring and body doubling executive functioning support for me to kind of start to learn and internalize those skills and just become a much better student. So that's been like really helpful.
So what are the supports that are helping now? You said upper division is going better. You've learned, you've gotten the diagnosis. So what are you doing that's working?
I think the biggest thing that's really helped has been, I think, like I said before, having a body double.
Oh, yeah?
So body doubling, for those of you who don't know, it's an experience of basically having someone physically, or like I suppose digitally, but be present with you and be working alongside of you in a way that creates accountability, especially for a deadline. So because of my executive functioning challenges, if I have an assignment or task that's kind of out in the future, let's say I have an essay that's due in a week and it's 5 pages, it's going to be really hard for me to kind of generate the desperation it takes for me to do it until it's right up against the deadline. But if I have 2 essays due the same day, then it's like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, you can't do them both at the last minute. The last minute's the same minute. So what does the body double do?
So what the body double does is, if my essay is due on like Sunday, I'll schedule an appointment with my body double for Thursday. We'll have 1 or 2 hours scheduled on the docket. And because I'm there, I'm accountable for their time and my time, and like sometimes the amount that we'd pay to have that person present. It would create a very strong sense of accountability for me to sit through and get the work done. So because of that, by the time Thursday night was done, I'd actually have a draft of my essay that I never would have without the body double. And what's been cool about that is over time, like this process mostly started for me in sophomore year. By the time of like winter and spring quarter, I've started to be able to do that on my own without needing a body double to be present, which I think is really cool because it's shown that I've been able to internalize some of these skills over time.
That's
and it shows
awesome.
It's like your like level of quote unquote functioning. It's not fixed. It doesn't mean that disability doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The challenge doesn't exist, but you can get better at things and develop skills with support.
Yeah. And I, particularly because I hear that you're having to pay for it, that this is not an accommodation that is funded by UCLA. How many hours a week are you using your body double?
Yeah. So like you said, this is an accommodation that is for me hasn't been paid for by UCLA, but it's only like 1 to 2 hours a week, maybe more during finals week. What'll often be is like an hour, half hour, like kind of consultation ahead of the week to like map out all my assignments and tasks. Like especially now I'm part of clubs. I'm running BNC and NET, doing all this neurodiversity advocacy. Like my schedule is a nightmare. It's like the 10 jump ropes thing. So one of those, and then like 1 hour later in the week for whatever assignment I have. But body doubling isn't something that you need to necessarily pay a person for. At BNC, we already have like BNC sponsored body doubling sessions with our own students and kind of the community offering as that support. But we've also been in conversation with some folks at UCLA on seeing if that type of body doubling support or executive functioning support program could be offered by like academic counseling or student mentor services.
Yeah. So how is that advocacy process going with the university administration? Have you made some headway? I know you already were successful in founding an organization, but has it continued to go well?
Yes, it 100% has. I think a big part of that's been thanks to the Rise Center, which has partnered with us on this event. They're a mental health organization at UCLA. And they've been partnered with us on this thing called NET, which is the Neurodiversity Empowerment Team, which is kind of the administration side of neurodiversity advocacy that BNC was kind of an integral part of helping move forward. And we've had a lot of NET meetings and meetings with different campus partners over the last year or so with CAE that offers accommodations, with CAPS, the mental health service, with residential life, academic counseling, stuff like that.
Oh, great. So really all angles of the student experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still in the early stages of really working on making those changes. Like right now, a lot of it's conversations, but we've already been able to advocate for improving access to mental health support. There's the website and intake process on the websites. Neurodivergent students, all students have said it's overcomplicated and difficult to navigate. And BNC's had some meetings with CAPS and the mental health team, and they've been able to use some of that information to recommend changes to those services. So it's kind of small, humble change, but.
So Brian, just to wrap it up, can you give us a snapshot of how things are going at Bruin Neurodiversity Collective? Is membership growing? How's it going?
It's going really well. I think these last 2 quarters especially, we've had really good turnout at our events, usually between 10 and 15, which for a group of people that tends to have executive functioning challenges, including myself, that's no small feat. Our Discord server, which is kind of the main community based server, we've gained I think at least like 75 folks since we've last spoken. And like maybe 30 or so who are actively using it in a given month.
That's fabulous.
And this is without having done any real like proper advertising, especially to freshmen, because again, executive functioning.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it the executive function perhaps? But you know.
Yeah.
Okay, that is great to hear. So congratulations, Ryan, and congratulations, BNC members in the audience. And I think we're gonna throw to intermission here.